So whenever you go on YouTube, you see a bunch of videos about passive income, how to make it, and passive income is super attractive. Who doesn't want to get paid while they sleep without having to do a bunch of work all the time? And by the way, my favorite time in history is the time I got paid my first dollar from passive income. So if you have a low income, it doesn't mean, for example, you have to wait until you have a high income to actually make money. And most of those videos on YouTube that you basically see, they all talk about two ways of making passive income. And it's usually, for example, hey, you want to put your money into equities like stocks, or you want to put your money into physical assets like real estate. And it's not to say like those are not good things to put your money into, but they're not the only ways. And usually with those ways, the amount of money you can actually make is a lot lower. And there's also requirements to actually get involved with those entire investments. For example, just to make $40,000 a year in passive income in the stock market, you're gonna need somewhere like around $500,000, making 8% a year. To make that money, for example, in real estate, well, before you buy the property, you gotta qualify, you gotta have a down payment, you gotta have tenants, and you also have to have money on the side when you actually have vacancies. There are limits to these things. There are entry points. So in this video, I'm gonna tell you about the other 3 ways to make passive income. So in total, there's gonna be 5 ideas here as far as how to go out there and make some proper passive income, even if you have a low income. And there is one thing I do wanna say, as you watch this video, you pick one, you work on it, but in reality, you can do a multitude of these at the same time and just build it up even more and more and more. One goal I will tell you to say is just have one bill in mind and work towards covering that bill first. And before you know it, your passive income covers every single bill you have. Now, as always, guys, do me a favor and smash the like button. I appreciate it a ton. And we also have a goal to get to 500,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So subscribe to the channel right now to get more information on business and investing and everything else. And I also appreciate it a ton. Now, the very first thing is, guys, before we get started here, I want you guys to comment down below this, okay? Comment down below. How much money in passive income do you need right now to cover absolutely every single bill you have right now? I'm not talking about, Tommy, I want to have $100,000. No, I'm talking about right now. How much do you need in passive income to cover all of your bills? If you don't know the number, then write down all your bills, do the math, come back to the video and type it down there. Now, if you have that number, if you typed it in, if you commented, great. Now I want you to reply to that same comment. Oh my gosh, this guy's trying to bump the algorithm. Yeah, but it's also very productive for you. And here's why. I want you to basically remove your shelter costs, your apartment or your mortgage. And I also want you to remove all the money you're paying towards debts. So remove both of those things, and I guarantee most likely that number just went down by almost half, okay? And that's the big difference. Now, we're dealing with a much smaller number, right? But Tommy, I still have these bills. I still have to pay my debts, and I also have to pay, for example, my mortgage or my rent or whatever it is, okay? The answer is yeah, but eventually, as we work this plan, you're gonna have a paid off home, and you won't have any debt. Because I have one requirement before you get into this, and that's basically pay off your debts first, because doing this stuff is kind of risky. And the last thing you wanna do is basically invest money here, everything's working, and then you need the money to do something else. You don't want that, okay? So that's one thing. And I also want you to build an emergency account. That way, you never have to stop doing what's working, okay? Now, the very first way, guys, is gonna be, of course, investing into equities. By equities, I mean, for example, putting your money into the stock market. Now, by the way, this by far is my favorite way. Now you have 2 ways, okay? You have the first way, which is basically, well, Tommy, I like Apple, I like Tesla, I like this company. I'm gonna put my money into this company and hopefully I make some passive income from it. And the answer is it could work or it could not work. And the answer is when you're trying to build passive income, you're talking about passive income for a lifetime. So what guarantees that that company is gonna be here 50 to 100 years from now? So usually the best way to invest into equities, into stocks and so on is by buying a basket filled with them. Okay, for example, if you buy the S&P 500, that's the 500 largest companies in the US. And when you buy into that, you buy all of those companies. You have a piece of the entire US market in a sense. So you only lose if America loses. And to me, that sounds like a much better plan overall, because I think America is going to be here before you and me basically aren't here anymore, if that makes sense, okay? Now, if you were to invest around 200 bucks into here, at an 8% return for 30 years, again, this will build up to over $600,000. It might not sound like a lot, but it is a lot because all you did was put $200 on the side. And that builds up to a massive amount of money over time. And if you put that money into a Roth IRA, guess what? That money will be fully tax-free. Now, my advice is that's just an example. I would put 10 to 20% of my income into that Roth IRA, so that way you have even more money by the time 20 or 30 years actually pass. Again, only start investing once you're debt-free and you have a fully blown emergency account. Too many people, they start and have to stop, take money out, pay taxes to cover things, okay? You don't want to be that person. Do things when you're ready, not when you want to. Now, number 2 is physical assets like real estate. Real estate is pretty good. Now, I bought my first property here, and I want to say one thing. A personal property is not an investment. If you buy a property for $100,000 and it goes up by 3-5% a year, and after 30 years you have, for example, a $300,000 valuation or whatever, well, in reality, how much taxes did you pay? How much maintenance did you do? You know what I mean? So overall, all the costs of owning a physical property for that long, guess what? It eats into that profit. But in reality, usually what's going to happen is you're going to basically break even. But as far as an investment property, like a rental property, you always hear about BRRRR, which is BRRRR, 4 R's, for basically you're buying, you rehab, you rent, you refinance, and you basically repeat over and over again. But they never tell you about IRI. And that basically stands for I regret it. Because a lot of people get into these deals and they keep basically leveraging and leveraging and leveraging. And before you know it, they have a bunch of loans here and there and things don't work out their way. So my way to buy a rental property is very different. It's a lot safer overall, okay? So I would only tell you buy rental property once you personally have a paid off property, once you build up your investment account, once you have no debt, and once you also have a full-blown emergency account. Now, when you buy the property, you look for a property with cosmetic issues. You can actually buy below the market value, which is actually very important. And when you buy this property, right, you put down 20%. Now, along with all the free cash flow you have from your personal income, you put that into that property every single month. And along with the rent and everything you get, you put that into the property too. That way, between 7 to 10 years, you will be done paying off this property. Now, obviously, when you buy the next property, along with your cash flow, that rent to put into that property plus that rent, you're going to buy the next property a lot faster, a lot faster, a lot faster, a lot faster. So overall, the first one is going to be the hardest, but after some time, it's going to get a lot easier and a lot easier because you have more money coming in and so on. And once you build up enough money that you say, okay, I'm good with this, you can just have all these properties, they're all paid off, they're all yours, and you don't have to worry about basically things going wrong at a certain level. That's my plan, and that's how I would do it, by the way, okay? Now, this depends, okay? Because some people like real estate, some people like stocks. So it all depends on what you want to do. Personal finance is personal. Now, number 3 is business. No one talks about this, okay? But you can build a passive income business. So for example, now here's the thing and why people don't like it this much. Because usually when it comes to building passive income from a business, it usually requires a person to put in a lot of work to then basically create a business that runs itself. So for example, okay, I do YouTube videos. In a way, this can be passive. You can have a book that can be passive. You can have, for example, an affiliate marketing website that can be passive. You can sell products to drop shipping that can also be passive, okay? But initially, it does require a level of extreme work to then get to a point where you can say, hey, I'm going to hire this person, or I'm going to let the business run itself, and that way it is passive. Overall, my understanding of passive, the way I want to understand, is basically you don't require to put in a bunch of time. But passive doesn't mean you don't put any time, because you need to maintain your investments always at a certain level, okay? So there's that, okay? Now, by the way, here's a real life example. I do YouTube videos. I've made over 1,000 YouTube videos. If I get paid 3 pennies per those videos every single day, in 1 month, I make $1,000, okay? Now, thankfully, I make a lot more from making YouTube videos, but overall, if I wanted to stop everything and use this very conservative math, I can make $1,000 for a very, 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 very long time from all the work I've done before. So think about passive income when it comes to business in the sense of like, hey, you put in a lot of work initially, but then you create a business that can basically run itself or with other people that you don't have to be involved in that much. And then you go into, for example, it's a lot more passive. There's a great book on that, and it's the 4-Hour Work Week. He has a lot of ideas in there as far as, for example, making passive income businesses. But there's also even a better place to look, which is called Google and YouTube. Just Google and YouTube it and find a lot of different businesses. Look for one you like and you enjoy, and then get into it and learn step by step. And don't put in a lot of money all at once, because it's a terrible way. If you don't know how it works and you put in all your money, you lose it. You got to rebuild that savings again, and that's never a good idea. Now, number 4 is going to be work. Yeah, work. So a lot of people don't think about this, but you can build passive income from a job, in the sense that, for example, a lot of insurance businesses that sell, for example, life insurance and so on, guess what? When you sell that life insurance policy to somebody else, you get paid on that sale, but you also get paid on the payments that they basically make in perpetuity. So that basically means if you collect enough clients, you sell enough policies, eventually you can retire, because those people will continue paying while you don't do any work anymore. So that's a job that does that. But then you also have jobs, for example, like in Walmart and in Google and in these big companies usually, that they also give you stock. They give you equity in the company. And by owning that stock, that's also, for example, you can make passive income from it. So there are a lot of ideas as far as jobs that enable you, in a way, through the ownership of some equity, in a sense, to basically make passive income from them. And by the way, I want to give you a piece of advice. This video is for people on a low income, but it doesn't mean you have to stay on a low income forever. You can start there, but don't stay there, okay? Because it's going to be a lot harder, and it doesn't have to be hard. So overall, if you can find a job that pays you a decent salary and it also has some passive attributes to it, then why not go ahead and take advantage of it? And there is nothing on this planet that you can't learn, but liking it is different, but learning it, everybody can learn it, okay? Now, number 5, and the final way to make passive income, are the trash methods. And I call this trash because in reality, the return is really like trash. It's not really that great, but they are necessary. And let me explain here. You have, for example, high yield accounts. You have, for example, bonds, and you also have CDs, okay? Now, CDs are certificate deposits, savings bond, whatever you want to call it, for the banks, and they suck because basically you have to put in your money, you can't touch it. If you touch it, there's a penalty and so on. But overall, let me start first with high yield savings accounts. High yield savings accounts are based on the interest rates. So they're always going to fluctuate up and down. This is not an investment, okay? Because inflation is usually going to be somewhere right around there. So your money just basically almost keeps up with inflation in a sense, usually. So that money is not really going to do anything. So that's why the money you use for this should only be, for example, your emergency account. That way, that money is there, it sustains its value, and if you need it for something else, you use it. But don't try to invest money into savings accounts. It doesn't make sense. Bonds. Whenever bond rates are super high, is usually because inflation is also super high. So whenever you buy one of these notes for, like, let's say 6% or 8%, maybe during that time you also have interest rates that are very high. But if you buy, for example, a bond for 10, 20 years, that might make sense. Or for example, let's say you have $1 million, $2 million, and you want to put that in a bond that makes you 2% or whatever. It might not sound like a good investment, but overall, as long as it beats inflation and gives you a decent return and you have a lot of money in there, it's safe. You can just basically live off the income and not have to worry about the fluctuations, which is actually very important, depending on what you want to do. And lastly, CDs. I just never really recommend them, okay? Because overall, they're not an investment, and why would you want to lock in your money for this rate when rates can change at any point, okay? I don't like it at all. So that's my advice, and those are the 4 types of passive income, or 5 in a row when you actually add in, for example, trash. But trash is trash, but it is important for your emergency account and to actually have some perspective for the future. But overall, between equities, you can do this. Between real estate, you can do this. Between, for example, a business and a job, you can also do this. And lastly, trash, you can also do this. But if you try to grab, for example, $1 and split it in 5 places, so 20 cents here, 20 cents here, it's not going to work. Focus on one at a time. And if you ask me if I'm broke, I'm going to try to look for a job first, okay, that can actually pay me in some way, some passive income in a sense, to actually increase my income naturally. And then I'm going to work on, for example, putting money into the stock market passively. But again, I would only do this after I'm debt free and I have a full-blown emergency account, okay? And then once I'm paid off with my home, I have my emergency account built up, I have my investments, then I get into more, for example, like real estate and so on, depending on what you want to do, okay? But you don't have to do any of these. You can actually just do one of these, okay? Or 2 of these, Focusing on one thing has its benefits. Focusing on multiple things also has its benefits. So you got to make sure it makes sense for you, and that's why personal finance is personal. Don't listen to me. Go watch more videos, do more research, read more books, and then make up your own mind. Don't be a follower. Thanks for watching. As always, like, subscribe, hit the bell so you're notified. The goal is 500K by the end of the year, so let's smash that goal. And as always, guys, I really hope you enjoy this video. I hope it gives you value, and I hope you learn something, okay? By the way, comment down below passive so I know you made it all the way to this point in the video. Up here is another one. Over here is my face. Go subscribe. And as always, long-term team out. Follow me on Instagram at TommyBryson. Peace.